Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, John Jordan. So this is our monthly roundup of what's going on in terms of on-chain activity for the most popular blockchain games. Got plenty of graphs to go through, looking at the activity that's been happening, particularly around people doing play to airdrop seasons and how that sort of changed activity. So one thing you may note is I've sort of gone back to something I did do in the past, which was instead of having lines to have dots. So each one of these dots is a day, and obviously on the vertical scale we have the number of daily active unique wallets, data taken from DappRadar as usual. And I'm sort of thinking in my head, because in a lot of these graphs now we're getting so much volatility, I think it's actually easier in some cases to look at dots rather than lines. So most of these graphs are going to be dots, although as I go on I'll explain why some other ones are lines. Anyway, so this is looking at sort of the first 9 months of the year. And we can see in blue we have Pixels, so that's the game that's been the most popular blockchain game. Obviously we've seen that as all blockchain games has bots in it. Quite how many bots there are we don't know, but looking like over 50% from where it dropped off. But now it sort of came back up, so it went over 1 million, dropped back down to about 250,000 at least for a day, and has ended up back around in sort of the summer. It was back around sort of 750,000. It's come back down to sort of 600, 500,000. So obviously there's as we assume a whole bunch of these activity is going to be bots. So it's not sort of too surprising, and the point is it's still by far the most sort of popular blockchain game in terms of what's going on. And if we assume all games have bots, it's sort of a question of why does Pixels particularly have bots? And I guess that's because Pixels is a game where you can, if you sort of bot it, can sort of extract value. So it's not just bots, it's players who are sort of extracting value as well. So no matter sort of how you want to chop it up, Pixels is sort of most popular by far. But we do have these two other games in this graph at least. So Katazan and Lumitera, which have got which have sort of on their peak days have been at sort of the same level as Pixels. So what's going on there? So Lumitera, it's also on the Ronin blockchain, same as Pixels, and it had this sort of period where you could you could basically log in and collect points for their token launch, which hasn't happened yet. And you can see, one of the things you have to be careful about looking at blockchain games is you get these very large sort of growth phases that then just sort of collapse back down again. So obviously, to a degree, developers can create these sort of events by saying we're doing a play to airdrop campaign, and if you do these things in the game, or you just click on this button to prove your activity, then you're going to get some airdrop stuff. So we can see here, to some degree, it shows the size of these audiences. So Lumitera was on its day as big as Pixel, so it got up to 750,000, but that was for a day and then just dropped back down again, whereas Pixel sort of does this day in, day out. Katazan is a sort of a simple sort of tap sort of match. It's a match game, really, merge game, I suppose, on Telegram. But it also released a token. So the whole point of the game is it's not a blockchain game, really, like an on-chain game in the way that Pixels is. But people were playing on this game in order to get points, and the points meant when the Catty token went live, which it did do at the start of or mid-September, and everyone came in and claimed it, the more sort of activity you'd done up to that point, the more Catty tokens you got. So we have this other big peak here. Over 600,000 daily active unique wallets on that day when the Catty token went live, and everyone came in and obviously did an on-chain transaction to get it. But in general, Katazan, which is seen as one of the more popular Telegram games, is still generally under 200, 100,000, 200,000 wallets generally, and has now dropped since the tokens come out. It's obviously dropped off a lot. So you tend to have those sort of things when people are doing lots of events, lots of activity to get in the hope of getting tokens. The token comes out, and maybe you can still get some of the token by doing stuff, but sort of activity, sort of the hype, the FOMO drops off, and these things sort of go back down, sort of to zero. So Lumitera is not live yet, so we'll get to see when that game goes live. It's actually, I think, a fairly well put together RPG. But this is just sort of looking at this particular token event here. So we get these big peaks. They drop off again if the game is not sort of going live and having a sustained performance. And the interesting thing about Pixels is, despite all the bots, is pretty, it's come down, maybe half since its peak, but it is sustaining its audience in a way that most of these games aren't. So anyway, these are the most popular. What have we got next? Okay, so again, this is looking at the sort of similar thing. This is looking, I entitled this one, how seasons impact blockchain game on-chain activity. So these are, the previous graph was up to 1 million. So these are smaller games. But again, we have a mixture here of 2 games that have been around for a while: Alien Worlds in blue and Nine Chronicles in red. And these are games that Alien Worlds has been out for years, a couple of years. At one point, it was much higher. So it had hundreds of thousands of wallets active every day. At one point, now it's down to, what you see, sort of up to about 80, 90,000 on a day. So it has grown a little bit in 2024. Not quite doubled, but maybe sort of 50% growth. Obviously, it's a mature game, so it's sort of harder to drive traffic in there. But they're working hard at building out some sort of deeper community. It's a very community sort of focused game. So that's pretty steady. Nine Chronicles again is an idle RPG. We can see the mobile game went live end of November, I think, last year, and again it's seen sort of fairly steady growth, come down a little bit, but again it's sort of around this sort of 70,000-80,000 daily active unique wallets every day. So those are games that are live. Actually in these games they do give away a little bit of tokens every day, but no one's really driving in to sort of snap up all these tokens. We know what the price is, so the price isn't sort of going up or down, or it's going down mainly. So that's one of the reasons. But we have 2 other games where we definitely had these play to earn events. So Boomland, we can see here, it's a combination of a whole bunch of games from the Boomland people, but this is mainly when their Hunters on Chain game on Immutable went live for its season 0. So that was the end of June, start of July, ran for a couple of weeks, and we can see here sort of quite clear on-chain activity, over 150,000 daily active unique wallets when that was going on. And then when that season has finished and people have got their rewards, it drops back down, not to 0 in this case. As I say, there's other games in this ecosystem, and people are still playing Hunters, I guess, but down to sort of 50,000 ish. There'll be a season 2. I think it is coming towards the end of October. So we'll see again probably this sort of a drive of activity as people sort of come in to do specific activity to get the airdrop. And again, Blocklords had a very a much sort of a tighter sort of growth. So Blocklords is the mobile companion game, the browser companion game, I should say, for the Blocklords PC game. It launched on the Base blockchain. Very, very strong growth, up to about 150,000 it peaked at, and this was sort of, you can see when the sort of the airdrop event finished, because it just comes straight back down, hits about 30,000. That sustains for a bit. So these are people who, there was still sort of the ability to earn things in the game, and it's quite a complex game in terms of how it interacts with the PC version. So about 30,000, I think the developer says that's what they expect to see on the PC game. So this sort of seems about right. But then it sort of looks like it's gone down to 0. It's actually gone down to a few hundred, and this is because there's been a change. So instead of using ETH on the Base blockchain for your gas, you now have to use the Blocklords Lords token. So this has really taken. This is really the hardcore players here. There's a few hundred of them. As I say, there's not really any earning potential in the game now as there was here. So not a great surprise to see it, I suppose. But interesting that you have it's the same game basically, but this shows how different incentives can drive 150,000, 30,000, a few hundred. So again, just to be aware when you see these big numbers for games over a short period of time, this is driven by certain incentives in the game. And I'm not saying that's manipulative. I play Blocklords quite a lot, but this is just how audiences are reacting to what's available to them. Okay, less popular blockchain games. So these are again much smaller wallet numbers here. Upland, a sort of mobile browser game, it's been around for again years. Pretty solid, around its 200,000 daily active unique wallets. Not really much happening, up or down a little bit, 30,000, slightly under 20,000 here. But again, another mature game, a bit like Alien Worlds. Guild of Guardians, so that's a mobile game through the app stores. Not very on-chain game, so you wouldn't expect to have a whole bunch of on-chain activity through this, but we can see when it launched in the middle of May, 15th of May, got up to about 16,000 was the peak. Been going steadily down apart from this sort of a week here. Steadily down now to about 5,000. Again, as I say, that's people trading NFTs, and I think they had an event here where you could claim NFTs, claim the GOG token, the Guild of Guardians token. So I think that's what this little peak was. But again, a fairly steady sort of decline in terms of on-chain activity. Obviously, you can just play the game actually as an off-chain game. You don't need to do any on-chain stuff at all actively. I suppose you are doing it behind the scenes. So this is some measure of activity in the game. And then we have Night Crows, which is an interesting sort of, it's a PC mobile game from Wii Mix, on the Wii Mix platform, and it has about 200,000 daily active players, because it's mainly played as a Web 2 game, but there are Web 3 elements, and this is what this is sort of picking up here. And it was pretty steady, about sort of 9,000-ish, and then we've had these sort of weird spikes. I have to say, even though I played the game, I'm not quite clear why in September it's seen these this sort of volatility and these sort of high points. There is a weird issue it has when people get to level 45. That's when they can start trading, or that's when they can start minting out the in-game Crow token. So it may be, given where I'm level 42 at the moment, so if people have been playing more than me, then maybe a whole bunch of people who was playing it at launch have now got to level 45 and have now started being active in a different manner. That's one possibility. I'm not saying that is the definite possibility, but that's one thing it could happen. Need to look into that a bit more. So we'll see. But in general, these are what's going on with less popular games. Ronin is interesting, so I've broken these out on their own. So the Ronin blockchain is actually the blockchain that Pixels runs on, and also Lumiterra that we looked at in the first graph. Here are some other games on Ronin. Again, all in slightly different stages. So Axie Infinity obviously been around for ages. It's grown a lot this year. This is partly because Sky Mavis, the developer, is giving out a lot of the AXS token. So if you play Axie Infinity, if you just log in now, you can sort of claim a few dollars. You can just sort of build up a few dollars, maybe even like $5-10 a month or something. I don't know. I'm not exactly doing it at the moment, but you can see here, basically giving away tokens means you can drive. You can drive a lot of growth. I don't think you can drive growth to 1 million players, but you can drive growth to a reasonable selection of people who are on Ronin. So we know there's active people gaming on Ronin, and if you're active on Ronin, then you may as well be playing Axie Infinity and earning some AXS token. Aperon is a game that is live. The sort of one mode of it, at least. A PC game, so it's one mode through the Epic Game Store. This is not really measuring that activity, but this is measuring sort of a sort of token claiming going on. But it's at a fairly high level. So it's been steady growth up to about 130,000. Come down a little bit in September. But again, this is just going to show there are people on Ronin who will do on-chain activity to support games. And I guess the most interesting one is Wild Forest, which is a mobile and actually PC. Now it's a PC version, and it is a real-time strategy game. So a lot of the activity here is because their token's going live later on this year, the Wild Forest token. So people are playing the game obviously to get an allocation of that. So this is this is incentivized play in general. But again, it's another game that is actually got over 150,000 on a couple of occasions now. Pretty solidly over 100,000 daily active unique wallets. So again, this is just going to show what's going on Ronin. We've got some more to look at actually on Ronin. When's that one going to be? Here it is. Okay, so I went back to lines on this one because it was pretty clear what was going on. Again, this is games on Ronin going through, in this case, sort of closed betas or particular sort of seasons. We've seen Lumiterra before, so that was a really big sort of splurge in sort of end of July. The two other games did a similar thing. So Forgotten Runiverse had its own closed beta, got up to 400,000 on one day. So again, these are incentivized sort of seasonal play to airdrop sort of campaigns, and they all go down to zero when the campaign switched off, obviously. And another one for Ragnarok Monster World, which is actually now live. So that's again another mobile game, sort of like a. Not quite a MOBA. It's more like a sort of what would you call it? Sort of a Clash Royale type sort of card, sort of deck building, sort of MOBA light sort of game. I suppose 2 lanes, and you're dropping cards in to defeat the other person's tower. So not a lot of activity now. It's gone live. So this was again particularly for a sort of token event, and again you're seeing just on Ronin, that you have the potential for lots of wallets to come in now. So you need the special Ronin wallet, you need a specific Ronin wallet to interact with the Ronin blockchain. Loads of people have those wallets, and so you can drive, activity can be driven to a very high level from that. Again, the key thing with Ronin and all other blockchains is not can you drive a lot of people in for particular events. The question is, can you sustain that activity over months and years? And this is sort of a final look to look at some of those games. We've seen these games. These are games I've spoken about them all before in this video. But this is what I'm looking. So again, I went back to lines here because what I'm doing here is looking at what we call the 90-day average. The scale is actually a log scale, so we have to be a bit careful here about the scale, because it's not a linear scale, it's a log scale, which sort of squashes everything together, but makes it easier to see on a single graph. And this is the 90 days, technically 90-day trailing average. So every sort of dot making up this line is the average of the previous 90 days of activity. And what this does is it just smooths out any volatility. So you just get sort of the underlying sort of trends that are going on here. And I chose these particular games, because they don't have these they don't have these very short sort of seasonal bursts, boosts, and could call them boom and bust, I suppose, but they don't have this sort of incentivized sort of event that suddenly give them 500,000 wallets one day and then goes down to zero when the season's switched off. So with Pixels, we can sort of see its rise, throughout the year. Obviously this is an average. It doesn't go as high as the sort of individual day would have been. Pixels went over 1 million, but the average doesn't go over 1 million. But it's sort. You can see now it's sort of plateauing out. Axie Infinity, you can actually quite clearly again see the growth as they've started giving away more tokens and made it easier for people to claim those tokens. Alien Worlds, you can see it's sort of come down. As I said, it was much higher before. It's sort of come down but then sort of hit a sort of plateau and then slowly building up again. And Nine Chronicles sort of has just been growing, albeit from a very low level. So that's I think using dots for the sort of the volatile time frames, and using sort of a 90-day trailing average for games that have been around for a bit longer and have gone live for periods of time is an interesting way of doing it. So that's what we got today. So as ever, blockchain, always dynamic, loads of stuff going on. It is interesting that now we do have a lot of new games coming out, and particularly on Ronin, we've seen a lot of those games generate a lot of on-chain activity. I guess the question now, as those games come out towards the end of the year, or we see for the first sort of quarter in 2025, do we see those sustaining? Do we see them growing? Or was all the activity just driven by sort of token incentives? We will wait and see. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.